Okay, to create the mobile application to call the web interfaces, the first thing I need to do is bring up my NetBeans and turn on my application server and database. Because if the web service isn't working, you can write perfect mobile code, it's not going to get any data. I would even test that your web service is working by right-clicking on it and say test resource URI. If you don't see data, then you're not going to have, then it's something else that needs to be turned on. Here is the code I wrote that creates a mobile app in Kiwi. I'll walk through it quickly, although there are comments on it. There's a few things I had to do that I didn't necessarily want to do, but I ran into some issues and it was an easy way to get around it. So first I imported some packages from Kiwi, and then there's a URL lib in Python to call the XML and to parse it. So in Kiwi, let's see, I create a window first with one column. I'm going to put a button on it, and the button is called refresh. And let's see, I bind the button to this method, which we'll talk about in a minute. So when they click the refresh, it'll go out and do the XML call. You have to add the button to the widget. And then I make a second layout with 5 columns. And I add that. So we have a button, an area at the top with 1 column, an area at the bottom with 5 columns. And I wanted to put some kind of a table to show the data, but there's more packages. Table isn't a basic Kiwi component, and you have to install more packages, and I didn't want to install more. So I thought I'm just going to make 5 labels that will each be the column of my 5 pieces of data. So I made a breed label and added it to, and you notice here I add it to the column grid with 5 columns. So I have 5 labels, 5 columns, they'll be equally spaced out. I made one for location, I made one for health, I made one for weight, I made one for length. And then you do a return window. This, notice, is indented. I call my method getData. This is the method that will get called when the person pushes on the button. And in this, you always have to pass self and instance. So I create a variable with a URL, and this comes directly from, I did test URL on my NetBeans, and then I just copied and pasted it in. Let's see, you have to open the URL, you got to read the data, and we convert it to a big string. Now at the top of each of my labels, so I have a label for each column, I put the column header. And then, so I have all the data in this variable called XML text. So what I'm going to do, as long as XML text is greater than 25, I'm going to keep looping. Basically, I pull the next turtle information off, and then I remove it from the string. So here is a command. I set the text of each label to the old text plus, and I use the XML string. The bracket is a substring, so it starts at, and I find the first position of bracket breed, and it's 11 characters long, so I add 11. That should be where the data begins, colon, and then where the end, the slash breed code ends, and then I add a carriage return. And I do that for each one. Notice here, this is 14 characters long, so I add 14. It's 16 characters long, so I add 16, etc. There is a package to parse XML in Python, but I ran it with it and it said that it didn't like the XML format. So I didn't investigate, so I thought I can just easily write some code to pull the data out. And then once I load the current data, what I'm going to do is pull that section of code or of data off the XML data. So I'm going to just remove it, so it'll get smaller and smaller and smaller. Every time it loops, it'll put the data on the screen and remove it from the string. And that's why at some point it'll be less than 25 characters and we know to exit. And then at the very bottom, we have this right here. This is what makes the whole thing run. When you run it, it will call turtle tracker mobile.run, which is our main method. And that is the code that I wrote.